Hi, thanks for joining a new video. Today I'll review the Galaxy S25 Edge. You must begin. In my opinion, this particular device has truly inaugurated and defined a brand new category of ultra-thin devices. The price will compete with top devices, but others will surpass it in photography, battery, and more. So, for price, we can't put it to compete in that segment because I think everyone could beat it. However, if we consider opening a new ultra category, let's consider if in the future other manufacturers begin to invest in ultra-thin designs. At that point, we might be able to compare it with other alternatives. This device is targeted at a very specific segment of the market. I must emphasize, if you only look at the price, clearly there are other options that will outperform it. However, if you take into account the ultra-thin and ultralight format currently, it stands alone without competitors. In Mexico, it's priced at 28,999 pesos, which is roughly $1,500. You can imagine, it's quite an expensive device. Extremely pricey, this applies to the 256GB storage version. However, during the initial pre-sale phase, they are offering the 512GB model at the price of the 256, which is a slight advantage. Given that the 512GB model was announced at a price of 31,499 pesos, approximately $1,625, it is indeed a very costly device. Nonetheless, Samsung has recently adopted a rather unusual strategy, as its launch prices have been quite high. However, many times it provides coupons and various discounts. Description making it a more appealing option. So, if I have any discount coupon available at the time of publishing this video, I will leave it in the description, as well as the link to the official Samsung store, allowing you to enjoy additional benefits. For the moment, I emphasize that when it comes to price, it competes with the Vivo X200 Pro. The camera is a spectacle. The Honor Magic 7 Pro, which has a beastly battery, with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, so all of them surpass it in nearly every conceivable aspect, except for the fact that it is ultra-thin and ultra-light. However, let's go ahead and describe it step by step, point by point. Let's start with the design, where you will obviously find one of its main strengths and its main attraction. Due to this new ultra-thin category, we are going to find super reduced bezels on the front, so it looks very modern. Especially striking is how reduced the bottom bezel is, because it becomes completely symmetrical with the rest of the bezels. In this case, we also find Gorilla Glass Ceramic 2 protection, a glass that will be resistant to both falls and scratches. Although we do not find the Gorilla Armor anti-reflective finish that is present on the Galaxy S24 and 25 Ultra, it was probably a heavier or thicker glass, or we do not know why Samsung did not incorporate it in this device, but we will not have anti-reflective as advanced as the one we see on the Ultra devices. But as I say, the most attractive thing will be its profile view. In this case, appreciate the titanium frame that integrates to give it a very good rigidity and comes with only 5.8 mm, trust me if you're worried. The problem of it bending or similar, applying a significant amount of pressure on the device, it seems sturdy and unlikely to break or bend easily. Buttons, and on top, there's the volume rocker and power button. It demonstrates excellent rigidity, which is a positive aspect for a device this thin. On the right side, we have the volume buttons along with the on-off button, and on the top, we can find there are two microphone holes. On the left side, there are no buttons or extras, while on the right side, we find at the bottom section, we can locate a tray designated for the SIM card. Remember, it still uses a physical SIM card in this case, though sadly, just one tray left. Then we'll find the microphone, USB-C port, and the speaker. With this single-hole design, at times it can be difficult to realize just how incredibly thin the device can become, but as I've demonstrated in previous videos, check out, for instance, how it appears with the S Pen's thickness, so it's truly very thin. It is also exaggeratedly light with 163G, that is, it has a weight very similar to the Galaxy S25. The Galaxy S25 Plus is the smallest, matching the Galaxy S25 size Plus. So this is without a doubt its primary attraction. If you are in search of a device that is ultra-thin and ultra-light, yet you still want to have a large screen at the same time, definitely this is the option. However, later on, we will observe the sacrifices it has made. The back cover continues to showcase Samsung's minimalist design style, featuring a camera module housed within a small capsule that protrudes just a bit. The device, and then the camera lenses extend outward. Interestingly, the camera module features a sort of floating design, which is quite subtle yet noticeable, because tires so maintain the slim profile. However, it does appear to be quite intriguing. In general though, it isn't a device that has an excessively cumbersome or overly heavy camera bulk that we might encounter in other devices. That are more specialized in photography. However, in this case, you are clearly going to give up several technologies to be able to enjoy this ultra design. Slim. We'll soon review the photographic results, but for now we'll share our thoughts. I remember that it is available in titanium blue, titanium silver, and deep titanium black colors. For this particular instance, what I have here is the blue color edition. Truly looks great. Samsung hasn't chosen designs lately with varying patterns or reflections, but it leans more towards minimalism, and honestly, I find the design appealing. Lastly, I'll tell you that the device also features IP68. So it's water resistant. It's perfect. Well, but recently, there are many mid-range devices incorporating IP69. We can. The display is 6.7 inches, large for the device's size and weight. The screen measures 6.7 inches, which is surprisingly large considering the device's thickness and weight, making it quite impressive. It also boasts a high quad HD resolution. It's a 1440 by 3120 pixel screen, truly spectacular. Personally, I think I would have liked to see a full HD screen more, perhaps so as not to consume so much power. Even through configuring any form, it sees, since full HD resolution is selected by default, to avoid consuming much power anyway. However, despite all these factors, the hardware itself is actually Quad HD, so it will consume more power than a OLED screen uses, so I really don't see much point in putting in a screen that has more resolution than what is necessary. The system defaults to the default setting. This could be a major criticism of the device, especially considering you need to prioritize battery life a bit more. In any case, with such a high resolution, you can achieve 512 pixels per inch, meaning all texts and all content will appear extremely detailed. When it comes to color and brightness, keep in mind we're discussing a Samsung Dynamic AMOLED DOS-X display which offers top-notch quality, which Samsung has to date. On your mobile devices, it has two color modes, Vivid and Natural. The Vivid mode offers more customization, allowing manual white balance. You can adjust RGB parameters and use another slider for color saturation called Intensity. It's ideal for selecting specifically for your personal use. How intense you like the colors? Consider that in addition to manual white balance, it has adaptive color tone, which will try to mimic the white color of the environment to have more adaptive tones. Personally, is a tool I like. Samsung includes other technologies. On this device's screen, like ProScala, which Samsung claims enhances image quality by up to 40%, the images that you are currently viewing, so even if they are not of an exceptionally high resolution, the device has the capability to give them a distinctive emphasis for. See them more clearly. It also includes Vision Booster for that even when exposed to bright sunlight, the colors might be slightly changed. In order to enhance your visibility and make it better, of all content on the screen. By the way, it is a display that reaches a peak of 2600 nits at most. You can show stills and videos in HDR captured by this device, but it also supports HDR, YouTube, Netflix, Instagram, and other apps in general. So in that sense, screen, if it gives us a super full experience through software, notice that it also provides a way to manage the way videos are displayed on the screen and also allows you to choose if you want to enable the Super HDR feature to show the images that have been captured using other Galaxy devices, using the same info of brighter areas than others. Regarding the lower brightness, it is surprisingly low, making it quite comfortable for viewing during nighttime. But it includes an extra dimming mode, so we are going to look for a screen that responds excellently to all the settings you desire. However, there is no personal information available about the rate of attenuation. I don't have any sensitivity to the flicker that some screens might generate, so this data doesn't really matter to me. However, if you are someone who is sensitive to this kind of flicker, then this device might have a slightly lower rate that could cause some discomfort at night when the brightness is low. Still, I must emphasize that this is only if you are among the most sensitive when you see a screen with low brightness at night. I think most people do not have so many problems with that, but well, you should know because there are other brands that offer screens with very high attenuation rates that minimize this flicker, which I insist I've personally never noticed. Finally, the screen ranges from 1 to 120 Hz, providing a good balance for power consumption. Great fluidity, but I would have preferred a 90 Hz screen to conserve some extra battery life. Again, I think the screen could consume less power, and in a device that is very thin, I think the power would be very valuable. The sound is spectacular with stereo, a speaker below, and another in the earpiece area. It's wide, powerful, and high quality. The presence of the bass frequencies impresses me in such a slim device. Therefore, in this regard, it absolutely does not disappoint in any way, as it complements perfectly and seamlessly. But how about if we take a moment to listen to a short test? Although, do keep in mind that it's not quite the same as hearing it live.
'Cause I'm just an accident waiting.
This device also integrates Dolby Atmos for a wider immersive sound experience with different presets. It provides a 9-band equalizer for customizing sound and includes a DAP sound for ear-specific tuning, a small examination, and fully adjust the audio to match the way your ears function. In addition, it includes a UHQ optimizer. If you have wired headphones, it will enhance the audio resolution, giving you an even better listening experience. Additionally, it includes a new feature known as per-app sound settings. This allows you to individually adjust the equalization for different apps, like how Netflix sounds compared to Spotify. However, to enable this feature, you need to press and hold in the quick settings panel, or create that profile. I suppose it's still not quite as intuitive, however. I like having this option. It also keeps application sound separate, which Samsung has included for generations. You can send some apps' sound to a Bluetooth speaker while keeping others on the phone. It's perfect for parties, allowing you to play music while watching videos on your phone or similar activities. Keep in mind that it lacks a headphone jack, and there's quite limited space available on the cell phone, thus making it entirely impossible to integrate it here. As an alternative, Samsung is choosing to focus on wireless sound, and therefore it provides you with high-resolution codecs such as LDAC, EPTX, and the Samsung SSC codec, a technology from Samsung. However, in that sense, we could demand the aptX adaptive codec, known for its superior quality, or the LHDC codec, which is not available either, so it does not offer the full catalog, although it does give you some high-resolution sound options for Bluetooth headsets. And remember, you can install Sound Assistant is an application that you can install via Good Lock. It allows you to manipulate even more features and settings. For instance, you have the ability to adjust the volume separately for each application, which is particularly useful if you are multitasking and handling several tasks simultaneously. For example, if you are playing and listening to music at the same time, you can independently control the volume. This is an example, but it applies to many more things, though I insist it needs extra installation. The Good Lock module is available for installation through the Galaxy Store, and it is indeed a fully official application from Samsung. When it comes to microphones, we will discover that there are at least 4 of them in total, strategically distributed. In the vicinity of the cell phone, a microphone is positioned at the lower part of the cell phone. From this camera, the truth is it's hard to find, but it's there, probably for noise cancellation. Let's test record with these mics.
Esta es una prueba de sonido grabada con los micrófonos del Galaxy S25 Edge.
The microphones truly work excellently. Let's take a closer look at how they tend to behave when they are in much noisier environments than usual. We will examine their actions and reactions in these conditions. As you can see, the microphones automatically adjust their gain to prevent distortion. The sound continues to be clear, maintaining a high level of quality, so together it provides a great sound experience, not much on Zoom. But we'll discuss that shortly. Also, remember that during a call, you can swipe down in the control center. To select a microphone mode, there are 3 options available. One, to isolate your voice more, and another with no noise cancellation. So, depending on your intended use, you could select a microphone profile. Let me close this block by telling you that it has X-axis haptic, then the vibration will have a premium feel, the tactile feedback you experience on your hand while interacting with the keyboard, buttons and elements, it's like should be premium. In this way, no significant sacrifice is noticed either. For making a slim cell phone, it's outstanding with intensity adjustment. In settings, trust me, it has good intensity to become aware and notice those gentle taps on your hand while you are actively using the device. The front camera boasts 12 megapixels with an f2.2 aperture, and autofocus placed in a circular cutout at the top center of the screen, we are definitely talking about a very good camera in this regard either. There seems to be clipping. I remind you that you can double press the power button for move quickly towards the camera. Feel free to repeat that action if you wish to enter to the front camera, or it can be rotating between these different cameras, making it a really convenient gesture. Speaking of gestures, it also introduces this palm gesture for easy photo capturing when it's difficult to reach the button, the shutter. In fact, you could also capture by pressing the volume button, or in the settings you could enable the floating shutter button for you to place it where you want it and where you want it. Your finger can reach it easier. Of course, you can also return it to its original placement. And there you have it. Observe how the device performs well during a capture. Quick to respond, but even if you slide the shutter down, you'll still be able to access a burst mode, a feature that's rarely found on other cell phones. When you hold down the shutter button, you can start recording a video, and releasing the shutter will stop the video. However, if you slide the shutter button up, you can continue recording. This is a very convenient way to record. Remember that it comes with 2 levels of wide. The closest setting will give you 9 megapixel pictures, but overall, it's an exceptionally well-behaved camera. Additionally, take note that it includes a drop-down menu offering additional settings such as access to the self-timer feature. In addition, we will be locating the settings for the image ratio, and naturally, of course, also the moving picture. One of the things you're definitely going to need is to make use of the phase shift function. You'll also find exposure compensation, which can be quite useful when you're capturing photos in extremely dark settings and the device overexposes the image quite a bit. Additionally, we're going to find access around this area to various color filters, including the option to upload an image to simulate a color filter. The colors you will find. The option for facial beauty includes 4 distinct parameters, each one having its own unique intensity setting. And even if you adjust everything to the maximum level, I believe it still doesn't appear overly artificial. But it depends on your taste. The last button lets you choose color rendition for natural or warm tones based on your photographic preference. Note that some indicators dynamically appear at the top, for instance, if I'm using the beauty mode. This indicator is placed at the top, allowing me to avoid opening the drop-down menu each time, so that I can quickly access these options. However, if this beauty mode is turned off, the indicator will be hidden. To me, it seems like a good design, yet let's take a brief look at the results. Notice how the level of detail truly is really very good, and this is due to the fact that it features autofocus. Excellent detail, exceptional sharpness and impressive textures, even good color rendering. And I'm telling you, from different distances, so even if you stretch out your arm, you'll still be fine due to the autofocus feature that is integrated. Therefore, it truly is a excellent quality, which competes at this high level, even in fairly complex scenarios with backlighting. It's important to note that it will provide us with a more or less optimized preview along with the final result. If it's going to achieve a good balance between light and shadow, even though it might lose a bit of contrast, it becomes quite demanding. However, I believe the photograph's quality is well demonstrated. In fact, one aspect that truly stands out is the autofocus. Notice how close it is to the subject. You can be on camera, and it hits you. Concentration makes it spectacular. Even in nighttime conditions where the outcomes are considerably more complex, you can observe that it consistently maintains a very high level of detail. There's minimal grain in the darker areas, yet almost no detail is visible. Is nil. Overall, the photography is really very good also in terms of color. However, in backlit situations at night, maybe it struggles a bit in the brighter areas to expose them correctly, but the rest of the photography is really very good. Above all, it is worth mentioning the good noise control, without giving up textures or contrast in any way. So the image is actually quite good. Using night mode doesn't really improve it noticeably, and using the screen as a flash simulation, the result is, in my opinion, much worse. But look, even portrait photography. Night frontal is quite nice. It has a good level of detail. Even the bokeh effect is quite nice, so it delivers really well. And it's worth noting that when taking a portrait picture of us during the daytime, we observe that it effectively keeps the objects positioned in the foreground in focus, even without needing to have your hand physically touching them or anything similar to that. It appears that when it comes to taking frontal portrait photographs, he's truly an expert in the field. In this way, this is the finest option we are going to discover within the entire industry. At the back, we will discover a 13mm ultra-wide camera featuring an f2.2 aperture and autofocus a 12 megapixel sensor. Then we'll find the main camera of 23mm with an aperture of f1.7, autofocus, optical stabilization, and a 200 megapixel sensor. This is one of the moments when you'll see the greatest sacrifice. In exchange for having a thin and light device, I've made the decision to eliminate a telephoto camera, which means the zoom capabilities are restricted and limited to only You will have access to digital zoom. However, due to the inclusion of a 200 megapixel sensor, they provide cropping within the sensor, allowing you to achieve, for instance, a 46 mm telephoto perspective while maintaining optical quality. You'll be able to see the results shortly of the zoom. However, it is quite evident and unmistakable that right now, at this particular moment in time, obviously, all devices that aren't focused specifically on being ultra slim are going to easily surpass it. Once more, take note that the device reacts really quickly to snapshots, and the burst mode operates very swiftly as well. But you can start it in the same way as I have already told you. This burst has a limit of up to 100 photos, and note that it takes almost half a second to start, so it can be a bit slow to activate. But really, if it lets you capture the moment you want, as the pictures are very quick and it has a high limit if the burst isn't used, our test shows that the device responds when capturing number 3. Very fast the moment you press the shutter. And in fact, if you install Goodlock's Camera Assistant module through the Galaxy Store, we're going to be able to configure more things about the camera. For example, we can request that even the shutter reacts even faster. So it's quite fascinating really, or prioritizing focus. The speed setting is adjustable depending on your photographic preferences, along with numerous other settings that would take too long to list. However, it's important for you to understand that in this place, it offers a variety of options available for you to choose from. Please take note that once more we are going to discover several of these parameters around here, which we had previously seen for the front camera, including facial beauty mode and also like the motion photography and the various color filters that you can fully adjust according to your preferences. Please note that it comes with several settings and parameters to create your preferred photo profile or load an image to mimic its coloring. In auto mode, press to adjust focus or the exposure, but you can also access the professional mode where you have more parameters. For example, you can manipulate the ISO, which can go up to 30,200. You can have the shutter speed up to 30s, exposure compensation, various focus types and white balance. Also, on the top, there's another button to change the metering type, and interestingly, it also has another button where it lets us have. The zebra pattern is used for areas where there is overexposure, which can become quite useful in various situations also. This false color modes that assist us in visualizing data with greater ease and clarity. Certain specific aspects of our photograph. If you click on the expandable menu, you will notice that there are even more options available for you to explore and utilize, such as tone, key points, shadows, saturation, and hue are elements that you have the ability to adjust. However, if you prefer to alter all of these settings after capturing the photo, you can also enable RAW photography. You have to enter the advanced image options section. Note here that you can choose to have RAW and JPEG formats, or just one of them. One of two formats. It supports advanced photography. Actually, if you're among those who desire something even more superior, I recommend you to download Expert RAW, which, as you can see, the shortcut is included here within the modes. You have to give all the necessary permissions. This app lets you have 24 megapixel photos for detailed pictures, and you have access to other experimental features such as advanced star capture or ND filter simulation to give you an even more detailed photo. A unique take on long exposure photography. Therefore, the truth is that when it comes to being a tool for photography, it offers a range of very good options available through its software. Additionally, regarding the smart capture feature, it's important to note that if you focus on any document, a tick in the bottom right corner to click, it extracts the text digitally for copying, or you can download the image with a button, make a note, and then somehow scan it into the system. As a matter of fact, you could additionally add it to a notes, but curiously, it simply adds the text. I would have preferred to see it include the scanner feature, because the scanner isn't very advanced. It merely crops the image, and then that's all it does. However, it does not implement color optimization, which is something we observe in other devices. Therefore, I believe the scanner is quite basic. I dislike the scanner because it can't add pages or easily export to PDF. Therefore, I believe that the scanner will need to be enhanced in the upcoming updates. The rest of the camera app is just great, since it will additionally enable you to scan QR codes. Just focus on them. In fact, you can open a drop-down menu to copy or share the link, or alternatively, you can just click on the link to open it up. Now, let's take a moment to examine the results we have obtained. With these cameras, notice the ultra wide is going to provide us with a sufficiently good level of detail, and the colors will have good saturation, and yet a strong contrast in the picture. It effectively manages chromatic aberration. There's no edge distortion, so it's a high-quality camera. Great quality. The primary camera preserves a commendable level of color consistency when compared to the ultra camera. Broadly, and as you can see, also has a really good level of detail. There is absolutely no distortion or anything strange around the edges at all. And the color is perfect. Are shown making it an excellent camera, even without a telephoto lens. See how well it performs. In these settings, for instance, this picture, 2x zoom, and trust me, it maintains 100% quality. It looks great. Have you ever noticed that this text remains completely readable, and so it offers excellent detail? Here we see the image with a 5x zoom, and again the level of detail looks spectacular. Samsung has achieved a very good level of optimization so that even though it doesn't have a telephoto camera, it makes perfectly good use of the integrated 200 megapixel sensor for the main camera. This would be the maximum zoom, which is 10, and although it is not seen with quality, I think it has a good level of detail, and it certainly has a good. This will be the primary reduction compared to their other brothers and sisters. Therefore, if you are capturing images using a maximum zoom of 5 times, you're not even going to notice that it doesn't have a telephoto camera because it performs really well. But if you're taking shots with 10x zoom or higher, you might find that this device is not going to satisfy you completely. Note that in backlit scenarios of clearly too extreme, the preview isn't fully optimized yet, though I insist this is an extreme backlight. But taking the picture shows how well it balances light and shadow. On the ultra camera, we might ask for more contrast. The image makes us demanding. Something happens with the main camera. It's quite similar, as we can still observe that the most illuminated area might be slightly overexposed. However, I must emphasize that this is due to a very intense and aggressive backlight. Yet, when we begin zooming in, we can notice that this effect is no longer being applied. HDR. So this will likely correct the issue to an update, which would be urgent because when you zoom in on the photos, they completely lose their dynamic range. At night, it shares the same drawback as all Galaxy devices. It struggles a bit with areas that are more brightly lit, often resulting in them appearing overexposed, but the rest of the picture generally looks fine. However, if you use the night mode, you'll notice that it improves the quality significantly, especially since it has improved contrast and noise reduction, better textures and controls the area more. Illuminated, which was its main weak point. In auto mode with the main camera, pretty much the same thing happens as with the ultra-wide camera. There is a bit more noise. In the darker areas, the brighter area is overexposed, so in auto mode it doesn't seem to take such spectacular pictures. In this aspect, Samsung needs to improve, although again with the night mode you can significantly improve the photos. But note that even applying zoom DOS-X, still the picture looks pretty good, although in this case, even in night mode there's little difference between photos. And when we zoom in at 5 times, as you can see, we still observe a good amount of detail, and that's the reason why I keep insisting that. Its optimum zoom range would be 0 to 5x. Even at nighttime, note the good level of detail it has. And with night mode again, there's not that much change. It's still a good picture without a telephoto lens. Without a light source, the device takes good but not perfect pictures. The darkest areas are tricky to keep artifact free, though illuminated parts come out well. Illuminated. Overall, I believe it's a good photograph, even though I'm not a specialist. Even when zoomed in a bit, he observes that the device still maintains good detail even at 5x, and in very dark areas, we no longer perceive such high levels of detail. With the use of night mode, I believe that the photography gains a bit more contrast. However, it still struggles to completely avoid the presence of artifacts in those darker regions. I think Samsung needs to improve night photography. For macro shots, this is the closest you can get. The device also offers a high zoom mode, of course. You can zoom in to try to get closer, but it's still pretty far away. However, the ultra-wide camera features autofocus, so you can perfectly well get this kind of super detailed pictures of very small objects, so here it delivers very well. And if instead of zooming in, you need to zoom out, note that panorama mode is available here with the ultra-wide camera, so it gives us a nice wide range while also maintaining a good level of detail in panoramic photos. It does not fail. The device also offers a high. Take pictures at 200 megapixels resolution and see the incredible and tremendous level of detail that you are able to obtain. Therefore, we can get extremely very close. And really, we continue to observe a photograph that possesses an exceptionally good level of detail. Right here, we discover a strength. Lastly, for portrait photography, it maintains good quality, though the blur with perspective. I didn't like the main blur much. It's quite intense, though you can adjust it. But with the telephoto, it's nice. Again, even though I lack a camera. Telephoto. Notice that the portrait photos appear with a good level of detail, and obviously this perspective looks much more professional, with a blur. Well applied, and you'll notice that the detection is quite good. Even in this situation, in the lens area, we can still observe a very good detection of the foreground. A good blur is achieved for the background, making it great for portrait pictures. It's really quite good, even though it doesn't have a telephoto camera. Now, let's discuss video recording as this device supports it. 4K at 30 FPS with a precise camera. And it can record in 4K at 60 frames per second using both the rear cameras and the front camera, which means it has really impressive capabilities in terms of resolution. In addition, this generation already records in HDR by default, but you can easily turn it off with one touch. Note that the resolution and frame rate management is clear, and you can change it with one touch, just like enabling or disabling super stable mode. Note that the drop-down menu will have more options, along with exposure compensation, or even the feature of automatic framing. which enables you to consistently keep a person right in the center of the action at all times. Useful if you have no one to record you and you want to be in the center of the action. Also, we will find that there are some additional options available, like a color filter. However, it cannot be used when HDR is enabled. Not in 4K, so you have to go down to Full HD. To use filters or adjust video coloring, you use the video. In fact, you could additionally include, just like in photography, a reference image to somehow replicate or imitate those colors. Also, consider in professional video mode. We will have the opportunity and possibility. Log it. For instance, the video may appear pale initially when recorded, but record much more information, so you can colorize it more easily in post-production. Interestingly, using this device, also, you can colorize the video even though it does it by itself. Keep in mind when recording a video, in log, and once you have it saved in the gallery, you can easily slide it upwards. And at this moment, it will display the color correct button. However, I must emphasize, it lacks any manual controls. It will automatically apply the colorization, and that is all there is to it. It will be interesting to see manual controls, but anyway, you can colorize it in specialized software like DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere, among many others, so you can have an even more professional experience of your video coloring. In this professional mode, you can also manipulate other parameters such as ISO, speed, shutter, compensation, focus, metering type, among a variety of other things, and also have the zebra tools along with several additional features I was demonstrating to you for photography. When using the automatic mode, you can tap the screen to focus or slide, to adjust the exposure compensation, and while you're recording, notice that you have a button to take pictures. There's another button to pause and resume the video, and notice that the zoom control is very handy because besides having this traditional, depending on the slider, you can also press this button in the lower right corner to change the zoom control. The usual selectors for this slider, which will enable you to zoom in either more smoothly or more rapidly based on what you prefer, your taste for recording. It switches smoothly between both cameras. Additionally, it features a button that allows you to switch to the front camera seamlessly without needing to stop your video recording, making it incredibly user-friendly and convenient. Quite adaptable. You can also switch on the flashlight without having to cut first your recording. Therefore, it offers, in my opinion, everything necessary for an excellent experience when you're recording your videos. Actually, if you look at the video settings, you'll see that you have the option to select whether you want to record videos at a significantly higher bit rate. This is perfect for shooting videos with lots of motion or lots of action for sharper visuals. It's off by default but available. And note that you can also activate the log mode to be available from automatic mode without entering log mode. Professional mode. Additionally, it features directional audio settings, allowing you to zoom in and increase the gain of the sounds coming from in front of you. If you don't like that option, you can also turn it off, because when this option is on and you zoom in while recording video, if you are narrating something, your voice stops being heard loudly and you start hearing more of what is in front of you. So it can be a bit annoying, but fortunately you can turn it on or off. If you have Galaxy Buds, you can also record audio in 360. Even in this situation, it appears that you can manage to do that without needing headphones. And ultimately, it offers an option that lets the music player continue playing while you're recording a video, which is quite useful for capturing videos, music videos or similar content. As you can see, the device there are a lot of features available for you to enjoy the ultimate experience. However, let's take a moment to watch a video demonstration in stunning 4K resolution. Really, you won't use this mode often, but it can be helpful for reframing as it allows you to zoom in and out while still. This will keep a super detailed image. Now you're seeing the result in 4K 60 frames per second. This device records in HDR by default. I'm currently watching the contents on a compatible monitor, and I have to say that they are truly spectacular. You see them in SDR, yet the videos look amazing. I think video recording is a strong point of this phone. Now you're watching the K recording at 30 frames per second, and notice that. How easily you can switch between both cameras while still maintaining excellent consistency in the same color, ensuring that you don't even notice that there are two cameras. But instead, they function practically as one seamless unit. The video quality on this device is truly remarkable and quite outstanding. We are going to find the result is great, and zooming shows detailed quality. Even in mid-level settings, the video recording's max zoom is 10x also in settings. Photography. Additionally, when we zoom into the maximum level, we might not achieve the highest quality possible. However, I believe that if we zoom in up to 5 times, we can still observe a satisfactory level of detail in the image, maintaining a good quality overall. Remember, you can make quick jumps or smooth zooms based on your settings, depending on the configuration you decide to choose. Remember that this particular device offers both modes, so you can do scenes with very aggressive zoom movements or scenes with a very aggressive zoom, very smooth. In backlit scenes, it truly looks smooth very well, particularly when using the HDR mode, enabled on a compatible monitor. Note that there are no exaggeratedly aggressive jumps in exposure, and consider that in this case we are in an exaggeratedly aggressive backlight scene. So yes, there are some moments where you get to see a bit of overexposure, but really the performance in these environments is very good. Now you're seeing the result with HDR. Turned off, and then we truly begin to see. We observe a very similar outcome when using both the ultra-wide camera and the main camera. In my opinion, it manages the situation quite effectively. The highlights and shadows, without abrupt exposure changes, with slight overexposures occurring when the face gets even closer to the camera. In the evenings, you should note that the ultra-wide camera is quite effective at controlling noise, which truly catches my attention, especially if you are recording with HDR. It significantly enhances capturing information in dark areas, continues to encounter issues with the most brightly lit areas, and also in places where there isn't a direct light source. You will notice that there is little color saturation and it struggles more to control noise. So the ultra-wide camera, let's say that at night you notice that it is not that advanced, but the main camera shows a huge improvement. It increases the contrast, enhances clarity, doesn't struggle as much in the brightest and darkest areas, and it keeps a good level of color saturation, though it seems to have some even in the darkest spots. However, there are some drawbacks when working with the noise that is generated in the darkest areas. However, if it becomes a good video recording exponent, the ultra-wide camera stabilization will be adequate. Even when recording in 4K, at 30 frames per second, you will notice good stabilization. While running, you might notice more compensatory movements, but it's still good. Switching to the main camera when walking, you will still observe offers good stabilization, even though it doesn't have a very wide angle. But when you're running, you might notice the movements a bit more because it naturally has a slightly narrower angle. However, it also has super stable mode available. And note that with the ultra-wide camera, it will practically look like you're wearing a stabilizer. It's really very good, though it doesn't support full resolution. 4K, but a kind of 8K approximately. The super stable mode lets you use the main camera. However, even when the angle is tighter, it's quite clear that you can notice them a bit more easily. Slightly more reactive to sudden movements when running, yet still, a noticeable level of good stabilization can be observed. It's important to note that the ultra-wide camera's focus responds effectively to movements, whether they are fast or slow. And indeed, the fact that it is an ultra-wide camera also enables you to capture macro for recording videos. The main camera takes a bit longer to focus, yet it keeps accuracy. So in both quick and slow motions, I believe it holds a solid focus. Constant focus. It also offers portrait mode with background blur and HDR. However, it doesn't appear to be quite as accurate in detecting them of the edges. Fortunately, it does manage to regulate the intensity of the blur based on the distance, but it often struggles significantly to maintain objects in focus. If your hand is placed on top of the objects, it will likely detect them somewhat, but if not, does not go. To be high quality, the device enables you to use digital zoom dose X for a telephoto view. However, pay attention to the hair area, as it noticeably struggles to maintain a sharp focus, so it's not really a recommended device if you enjoy recording with these types of effects. However, there's one thing that truly stands out, and that's the portrait mode. Fits the resolution, 4K, something quite rare in the industry. We'll also explore slow motion options like 4K at 120 FPS with HDR. The truth is that with this setting, you can achieve incredible results. They look even cinematic by the very high level of detail and the good slowness they reach. You can also slow down to 240 frames per second, but the resolution drops to full HD, so the level of detail doesn't look as spectacular. But if you like slower scenes and are going to use the video maybe just for social networking, yes, you can have it. Interestingly, they don't integrate a super slow motion mode that Samsung had in past generations. It looks like that mode will never come back. What it does integrate is a fast camera mode that from 5x for people's moves or when walking. It has a slight stabilization, although I think it should be improved, but I like that it can be in 4K, even with HDR applied too. Conversely, it might increase to 60x, which is high enough to record landscape movements or something similar, but you should know that there are other cell phones that can record up to 1/800x or more, so you could record even plant growth, but this cell phone is a bit more limited on the camera, fast. And take a look at the front camera's output in 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. It really looks spectacular, with a substantial level of detail and thoroughness, even with good stabilization while you're walking, and as you're aware, due to the presence of autofocus, you could actually also demonstrate something to the audience from up close, focusing on backlighting. I think it performs acceptably, though not outstandingly. Remember, this video is at 60 frames per second. Now you're seeing the night video, and once more, I believe the color is quite accurate and looks very natural. The result is positive, even though it will obviously have a bit more difficulty with the darker areas. You can notice a bit of noise, although it tries to control it effectively. What I do like is that it attains good saturation in the colors. Pale colors are not seen and also maintains a good contrast. I insist the weakest point could be the noise that is generated, particularly when you are walking or when there is an ongoing scene. With increased movement, the best option would be to record in scenes that have better lighting, since in darker scenes you might end up experiencing some difficulties, similar to most cell phones available today. Notice that its front camera also includes the feature of front portrait video, which helps to keep the subject in the foreground sharp and clear, while artistically blurring the background. Interestingly, the result with this front camera is far superior to what we saw with the rear camera, where the blur looked a bit artificial. So it looks nice. Also supports HDR and observes, as even the various objects. Does manage to keep them in focus, not at a perfect 100%. However, if you have your hand placed close to or on top of the objects, it performs with better accuracy compared to the rear camera. Thus, this mode itself is truly spectacular, particularly because it is in 4K. Even the front camera includes a slow motion mode, although it's in full HD at 120 frames per second. So let's just say it's straightforward, but for some creative scenes, it is available and ready to use. As is available the fast camera mode with the same configuration and behavior that we already saw in the fast camera of the rear camera. Finally, this device also integrates dual recording mode and it is on 4K something. Excellent, as I've only seen this feature on Galaxy devices before. Picture-in-picture mode comes with rounded corners and it looks very nice, but the disadvantage is that you can't apply. Zoom is a significant limitation that isn't present on other devices. This gives Samsung a clear advantage due to its superior resolution. Why? Good aesthetics. You can move the frame to your chosen area while keeping autofocus. To switch between the main or ultra-wide camera, stop the video and start again. You can also rotate between cameras to emphasize one over the other. While you are recording, there is no need to stop your recording. And finally, you also have the split screen mode, although you can pause the recording and then restart it, and allows you to switch between views. It continues to keep the autofocus enabled, but once more, you still can't to apply, zooming in. However, as an interesting fact, it appears that the focus of the front camera is fixed in every mode. In terms of software, we will be encountering One UI 7, which is something we were all already aware of. It includes the most recent version from both Samsung and Google, along with 7 years of support. Yes, also offering 7 years of security patches, making it one of the best policies available in the industry. This will ensure it's a device with a long and reliable lifespan. In terms of customization, it offers a lot. It includes its own wallpaper selector, which then allows you to personalize the lock screen. Keep in mind that, for instance, regarding the lock screen, you have the option to alter the font, the size of the clock, even the way of this watch to alternate for one containing the date or even the complete calendar. Finally, you specifically decide the design of this watch, including also the font thickness, compatible letters and color. But also note that when choosing wallpapers, you could select one from your own gallery and apply some effects. For instance, I chose a photo here, but I can also pick a frame for a different look, and it detects depth. Apply unique cropping to the photo for a new style, aside from the lock screen. Naturally, you have the option to choose the background color, especially if you wish to pick something that's specifically highlighted or extracted from the coloration of your photo. Furthermore, you have the option to include system widgets, such as battery indicators, which also show the status of your accessories, or digital wellness controls, calendar, and various other widgets. Overall, you have some really great options available for displaying information on this lock screen. Besides the frame option, you could also choose a design that includes a variety of visual effects to enhance the display. Effects such as a blur effect, for instance, a blur effect, or perhaps blurring the background and even applying various color effects. Once more, identifying depth or recognizing artistic effects. It also offers a great selection of styles for your lock screen. When it comes to engaging with your lock screen, naturally, you also have the option to modify the shortcuts that are accessible here. On the side, so very good level of customization. It can also extract the color palette from your wallpaper to apply in the system, or apply your chosen palette to style all indicators. By the way, we found this new control center. Because the panel is split into two, on one side we will see the notifications, and on the other side we will see the control center that we can also edit to rearrange it, or add and remove buttons completely to our liking. We could also edit it to keep it preserved as the previous generation, with all gathered together in one panel. Therefore, if you like having notifications and controls in the same panel, you have the option to set it up that way as well. You as the user choose how it looks. Remember, swiping from the left side by default accesses notifications, and from the right side you access the controls, but you can reverse that here in the settings as well. So now from the left you access to the controls and right to notifications. It depends on whichever hand you use most, it could be useful. We'll also have full customization in the store of Galaxy themes, where you can download themes to change your phone's look, including icons and lock screen. You also have the option of always on display covers, which you can customize entirely according to your preferences. There will be some content available for free, while other content may require payment. However, since we're discussing the always on display cover, it's important to note that you have the ability to sync it with the photo displayed on your lock screen. In this case, you can sync it with your lock screen picture. So, as an example, you have the option to choose to always keep the screen on. Please note that it will display a dimmed wallpaper. This way, you can always have a quick glimpse at it of your loved ones or a picture you like. Naturally, this will use up more battery power, which is why by default, it is set to the push to display mode, where you might have this experience, or you can adjust it to display automatically when it detects your phone out of a pocket at a set time or with a new notification. You have plenty of settings to enjoy of this always on display section, and in fact in terms of customization. I also remind you that through Good Lock you can install other modules like Kiss Cafe to fully customize the keyboard, even allows you to add your own keys and completely change the keyboard's distribution, modify their colors, themes, and other aspects, add stickers and extras. We'll also discover Theme Park, another module for customizing your home screen, the quick settings panel in order to create. You can completely adjust the colors and other things that you want, and you can even add icon packs here and customize the volume controls panel as well with respect to its colors. So at the level of customization, Samsung is one of the manufacturers that offers the largest number of options. Variety of choices. Samsung also now debuts a new feature called Now. The bar, which is going to serve as a small indicator, will display real-time content. For example, if it is Play in your team, Bookmark. You will be able to take a look at the bookmark, and we will also have access to the music control. That same Now bar will appear somehow minimized at the top, allowing you to click on it to access these controls, or as I directly tell you, from within the lock screen, we can also have press once to access. So it also has interesting functions. Actually, you can stack multiple cards here to access each one. Depending on your setup, it might show map directions or Samsung health info, having access to an interpreter when abroad, the timer info, or when recording a video, voice memo, even in Samsung Notes or emergencies. Let's take another example. While recording, notice we can exit the app and view it here for quick controls. Or we can. From the lock screen, you also have the ability to access these controls, which makes the navbar a really good idea. Although it is anticipated that over time, more applications will gradually add their compatibility. Currently, there is no list available as extensive, but it is expected that in the future, for example, applications such as Uber and the like will show you the progress through the Now bar. On the home screen, we will also find a new design with completely different widgets that even allow you to create stacks of widgets, or some widgets also have some level of settings and customization to change the style to light, dark, or adjust the level of transparency. The widget catalog is great, and most system widgets, as I mentioned, come with a very similar design with rounded corners that make the cell phone can be configured in a very nice way. Now, on the home screen, you also have the option to prevent the text from the apps from popping up unexpectedly. Just enter settings to disable or enable labels on widgets. We can also adjust icon size for a fuller view, as well as obviously being able to adjust grid size and other things. Remember that Samsung integrates a drawer of applications that in this case by default comes with horizontal pages, but you can also change this style of alphabetical order with a vertical scroll that is completely straight up and down, allowing you to choose the configuration you prefer. Even if you happen to not like, you can now choose to have both the home screen and app drawer together. Based on your taste, Samsung also lets you manage notifications in an incredibly nice manner, because right from the start you have the option to choose how you prefer the notifications to appear on your lock screen. But there are also additional features using this pop-up notification style. In other words, it is a distinct notification compared to other Android devices, as it carefully observes how it appears. Here, swipe down to open the app in floating window mode. In fact, in the settings, you can select whether you want the traditional style or not of Android, noting you. It will also provide the default buttons, yet it doesn't permit extensive interaction. However, you can press and hold the notification to open it in the same format. Additionally, the summary style mentions that it will enable us to incorporate lighting effects. To begin with, the screen's outline can light up or be turned off if disliked, with various lighting effects, so that your notifications look attractive. You can customize with colors and even customize the transparency, and the duration is interesting. And in fact, through good luck, you'll have the ability to further customize your notifications to add more effects. Additionally, you can map a keyword, so when someone says hello, for instance, the lighting changes to a different color. Furthermore, there's the Edge panels feature, which has been available for numerous generations in Samsung. However, it's important to note that now downloading it is no longer an option. More panels to the Galaxy Store, that's something that has been missing. Interestingly, a new distortion panel has been added. Voice, even though I have not personally had the opportunity to test it with any chat applications or similar tools, I believe they're working on it, but for now, it doesn't seem active. But to the Edge panels, we can access the apps, but we also have other tools. For example, the artificial intelligence selection, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but note that you can edit perfectly well. The various shortcuts that you can find and use in this section, and also we'll be able to remove Galaxy tools if we need more space for our own apps, or we can display recent apps for you to switch between more quickly. Drag and drop apps here for quick access. And note, we can also drag these icons to open apps in windowed mode, floating, or simply click once to open them up in full screen mode. Remember, we can resize these windows or move them aside. We will have the capability to open up to 5 floating applications simultaneously, which is excellent for multitasking. However, the applications tend to maintain a large size aesthetic. So even when you reduce the window size, I believe there are still elements and buttons that remain quite large, although using good luck, we can install the multi-style module. With this module, we can minimize applications by enabling this option. You can select if you want it to be in split screen or only in split screen. In the floating window, choose its behavior. But note this option gives a smaller view and more room to work in these windows, floating windows. All of the applications are fully compatible with floating windows, unlike what you might find on other devices. Because of that, in the lab section, we will be able to enforce, with this switch, all applications work like this, allowing many to run simultaneously. For instance, notice how the screen is split in half in this case. We have the option to change their position like this, or we can manually swap them by holding down on them. Additionally, we could adjust the allocated space or even create a shortcut on the main screen to easily open 2 applications simultaneously. With just a single tap, keep in mind that we have the ability to place applications on top of them seamlessly. And if we happen to leave these applications, we are going to notice that in the list of recent applications, both split screen applications and floating applications are displayed. So the management is entirely and completely good. Just be aware that the option for transparency in floating windows is no longer available, which was a feature that used to be accessible in the past to take advantage of, minus that option, but if you can minimize them in bubble format. Note that they will also find the possibility of making different gestures and movements with the phone to activate various things. I'm not sure how to use it, but I think it falls a bit short compared to other cell phones. I feel it falls slightly short here compared to other phones. For instance, the gesture to take a screenshot is awkward, needing to slide your entire hand across, when most devices let you take a screenshot with 3 fingers. Screenshots also lack support for controlling scrolling or similar functions using palm gestures. However, the good news is that the one-handed use mode fits perfectly. You can rotate it left or right and adjust its vertical position. You can also change its size completely to your liking so that you can use this device quite easily when one hand is free. It also lets you configure various screenshot parameters and thanks to screen captures with numerous details. Additionally, it offers a video effects feature that works with a variety of video calling applications, which is something most manufacturers don't offer. Typically, they only support WhatsApp or sometimes not even any app. However, in this instance, Samsung provides excellent compatibility with many apps. Then take note that when you are on a video call, you have the option to slide and open the controls panel. Once there, you can press on video effects. At this point, we have the ability to swap out the background with. We can use a blurred background, color effects, or a gallery image. Then it has great potential. Another choice is facial retouching, and we can adjust the tone for cooler or warmer lighting and change the brightness. There's also the choice of using automatic framing. It does remove the background image, but it ensures that it remains centered in the camera view at all times. The camera's center. We are also going to find, finally, let's talk about the reactions. It's important to note that we have the option to send them manually. Alternatively, we could also enable sending through some gesture. These types of reactions is quite interesting, and as I mentioned, it functions with numerous applications. Additionally, it features the Galaxy Avatar, which enables you to design your own personalized character that syncs with Samsung Cloud. In this particular instance, we are going to create this particular one just so that you have an example, upload your photography, and the character will be designed using your own features. Even though I've mentioned it before, I would really like to have an option to choose between male or female because the movements can be quite feminine at times. However, you do have a pretty good level of customization available, especially when it comes to hairstyles, facial hair, the face shape, cheeks, moles, eyebrow shape, eye shape. You can apply makeup, nose shape, lips, and absolutely everything. Everything. Then you have customize your characters extensively, including also a great range of clothing of various styles. Some options offer paid extreme customization. You can even add various styles of glasses, so I insist the customization level is excellent. Once you've customized your character, you can use it in multiple ways. For example, some states auto-generate stickers that are available for you to use directly from the keyboard. Alternatively, you have the option to create your own right here in the center. Creating your own stickers and adding a background. Additionally, incorporating stickers or including various movements on the surface of the face or perhaps on the entire body. Your character, it's really quite interesting to see what you can achieve. You have the ability to add text and you can also include more avatars as well. If you have other characters created, when you have your library of stickers, note that if you are, for example, in WhatsApp, you can access the stickers via. Here you can send them, but sadly as an image, not a sticker. Then that can get annoying, but hey, you can create your entire image library here or download some presets. You can also select avatar camera so that this character appears on top of it. And you can take photos or record videos. In addition, you have access to several other characters. You could also have this particular mode of mirror, either in this playful mode where the character will actually appear in real life, or in the scene mode, which also includes a solid background. Additionally, you have the clothing designer option, where you can select a mold and then upload a photo to personalize a pattern for each piece of clothing. Lastly, remember you can assign these avatars to your contacts directly to have their own unique character appear whenever they decide to call you or even create a custom video specifically for you to utilize within your own, any other location. There are various categories such as dance, relaxation, and others. Each individual one needs to be downloaded, and it is synchronized with specific music. So in this context, you can actually have one character, or perhaps even more than one character, to create all these different effects and styles. There is also the modes and routines section, where we can automate all sorts of things. For instance, we have a specific work mode available, which allows us to select from various options. The time mode can auto-activate when you arrive at a place or after a set time of time. You can choose from various specifications. Select the activation time and days and choose if you want Do Not Disturb mode on. If there are people who are going to be able to disturb you or not. Note that you can set the sound profile, power mode, and available apps. You have great options within modes, and for more automation, there's the routines mode for creating conditions. Just select one condition. Among numerous others, the reality is that there are a multitude of triggers for all the consequences, and then you can choose what you want to happen. You can automate many things on your phone, making it a very attractive feature because right now only Samsung offers it. And with the Galaxy, you already know. Samsung includes the Members app, where you can access a catalog of discount coupons and more, featuring various stores and collaborations Samsung has with the Galaxy community. Zoom integrates to pamper users, and you can report issues or collaborate with the Galaxy community. With artificial intelligence, this device includes a full Galaxy AI suite. In the description, there's a video where I gradually describe and show each option. Let's quickly look, since it includes the call assistant, writing assistant tool, interpreter, notes assistant, transport assistant, navigation assistant. It also includes a photo and drawing assistant, and also includes the audio eraser that has been recently incorporated without needing an internet connection. You just need to choose a video, and then you'll see that you have the option to press the edit button. After that, you can click on the access this video draft section. The device will analyze directly with the processor without sending anything to the cloud, and you will see the sounds here, which are accessible in the video. Only in this clip, voices and noise, but in other clips another category of music might appear. People and other parameters, allowing you to reduce the noise volume or decrease the music volume while increasing the voice volume, enabling you to create your personalized mix. That's it. This feature stands out because it's not typically found in other devices. Additionally, there is an option to create an ambient background for the image, and it comes the Now Brief, also available on this device. If you have the whole Galaxy ecosystem as a watch, ring, and use various Samsung services, you could receive additional information in these summaries. It provides you with a summary both in the morning and in the evening. Moreover, it can offer you recommendations for YouTube Shorts, Spotify, and various other parameters. It can remind you of great moments with pictures. Here, it suggests a post and similar things, so that's another feature that it brings. other new features I didn't tell you about in the Galaxy video, which I had already posted to you previously. Inside Samsung Notes, you can upload a PDF and use the AI button to generate summaries or fully translate PDFs in the Samsung web browser. Additionally, we'll introduce a new feature with the Galaxy button appearing. Now, there's an option called Lay. If you don't want to read manually, read aloud. The cell phone will just read the phone aloud with permissions granted. That's all. Can be useful, and it has potential to be a setting for speed control. To quickly read articles is an interesting function. Notice there's a new keyboard option I hadn't mentioned, creating your own emojis. Just go to the emoji section and the Galaxy button appears. Galaxy. In this place, we will have the opportunity to be able to write something we desire, like a soccer ball wearing a hat. After that, you can choose the category. In this instance, I'm going to pick Emoji D as my selection. Watch it generate with AI. Take seconds and provide suggestions, then you can perfectly complete it and this will be sent as a custom sticker on WhatsApp. Gemini from Google is seamlessly integrated into this device with the power button, but here's the twist. It's also compatible with Samsung apps. Then, you can also request it to set timers, which will open up in the Samsung Watch app. Additionally, you can ask it to add items to your Samsung Notes. For instance, if you're watching a YouTube video, you can press and hold the button and then choose the option to inquire about the video. Here, you can say it. Provide a summary from the points discussed in this video and include them in a Samsung Notes document. Now, go ahead and watch. Gemini will work its magic for you. It's connected. With YouTube extracting everything I said to it, then subsequently it connects to Samsung Notes, and that's it. Now I can open my Samsung Note, and I already have all the information here. So Samsung has managed to get Google's Gemini to integrate seamlessly into the operating system. However, you could also choose to switch to Bixby if you're missing Samsung's own voice assistant. In fact, when it comes to controlling various functions on the phone, Bixby still performs better. However, now that Gemini is able to control additional aspects, it gradually becomes more interesting. Remember that Gemini from Google is available on all Android and is an assistant with which you can converse as if it were a person. Practically, naturally. You can even share your screen, allowing you to discuss with others what you yourself are seeing on your display. Additionally, you have the option to share your camera for a more interactive experience. Or start a chat like a phone call with your friend. So, this is interesting, but I insist it is available on all Android. Here, the particularity is that it integrates well with the apps by Samsung. Naturally, it also includes Circle to Search, allowing you to just press and hold the navigation bar. You can enclose any item or object and search for it to provide you with a detailed description of what exactly it is that is being displayed on the screen. And if you're watching content in a different language, you can also press and hold to enable Circle to Search, then press the Translate button. It will automatically detect the language, and with just one tap, you can view it in your own language. What is happening in any area of the screen. Circle to Search is a Google tool, but it's limited to certain Android models. Not all devices, but this is one of them. And another feature that I hadn't told you about the Galaxy Suite, this feature is the image search powered by artificial intelligence. You'll see that we have the option to press the search button, and down here at the bottom, we can describe in natural language the image we want to find. At the moment, this function operates. In English, it's expected to work better in Spanish soon. For example, let's search for a sky, which means sky. And observe that he managed to perfectly find several videos in which the sky is present. Similarly, we could search for any other element. For instance, let's look for trees. And in Spanish, the term actually worked, meaning it can also serve as a more straightforward method to locate your photos using natural language. As for security, we will find an ultrasonic fingerprint reader that responds very fast. It allows up to 4 records, a weak point as most devices allow 5. There's less versatility here. It includes facial recognition, but it's limited to 2 dimensions. However, in this instance, it mentions that Samsung already permits it to be a recording from various different angles of the face, something that virtually no manufacturer has. It even says it holds you back. The glasses, if used, make the registration slightly more secure. Although it's not in 3D, it's more secure than the 2-dimensional one. However, the fingerprint reader remains the most secure. Samsung includes a feature called Automatic Blocker, recommended for less experienced users, as it prevents installation of apps from unknown sources. It prevents attacks through the USB-C port and other commands. However, if you are a more experienced user, you will need to disable this choice. Keep in mind, Samsung provides hardware-level security with Knox, a matrix that safeguards your device against any cyber attacks and similar threats. It also provides tools like secure Wi-Fi for a private VPN, making it very useful when connecting to public Wi-Fi networks in places like airports to stop anyone from intercepting your data. They offer a free 1 GB per month plan, but you can also upgrade to a paid plan. Protection, boundless, paying your membership. We are also going to find the usual Samsung secure folder where we can log in using our fingerprint. And right here we have a secure application center, or also from files. Your videos and any private content will be fully protected. Keep in mind that you have the option to encrypt the secure folder, providing an even greater level of security. Remember, this extra step can enhance your privacy significantly, and you can customize the secure folder to change the icon to resemble another app. Keep in mind, when you leave the secure folder, your phone remains unlocked if you don't lock it, so it's best to lock your phone. Or manually exit using the lock and exit button, ensuring the private hub functions effectively. You'll also find encryption for backups uploaded to the cloud and similar services. And please remember that Samsung Pass has now been moved to be located within Samsung Watch. So in this section, you will have all your passwords and records kept secure and safe, plus you have the option to add various other memberships and more details. But the key feature is Samsung Pass for passwords and private notes. Then, using the keyboard, you are able to access them for automatically filling out forms. However, note that Samsung Pass access is turned off by default, and it needs to be added manually, so it requires an additional step. But here, as I say, access all your private content and insert them with just a single touch. Another important security tool is the application protection, which is offered in collaboration with McAfee to scan against any type of malware. This is alongside Google Play Protect, included with all Android devices. It also features dual messenger, enabling you to clone certain apps, particularly messaging, and even manage a separate contact list. But remember, works only with these applications. Samsung Kids will also be offered, which we can search in the app drawer. The app drawer includes apps for kids, but parents can fully add or remove them to your liking. Samsung offers some suggestions, but you can modify them as you would like to include or add apps or games you've authorized. Children will not be able to exit this mode, and as a parent, you will have additional controls. These controls will allow you to monitor and check the amount of time you have spent engaging with your children. Of use, set up a consistent bedtime schedule, assign special permissions for contacts, applications, or content that the child will be able to directly access. From this mode, children, and as I mentioned, to exit you must verify using a fingerprint. This makes it a useful tool for lending the phone to children. In case you ever lose your phone, remember that you have these options from Samsung to help you locate your phone. Simply log into the website by entering your credentials. Samsung Discover, Explore, Samsung. Come to display a map and your devices. In this section, you have the ability to enable all these options, which will make you more confident in finding your devices. Additionally, Samsung includes an app called Finder. However, to utilize this app, you must enable the location permission at all times. For some reason, this isn't the default setting, so it needs an extra configuration. But you can add family and people, obviously, with your authorization, and you can see them quickly on the map to know where they are. You can also see where all your devices or even your items are if you have smart tags. Samsung also has a digital wellness mode different from other Android devices, where you can see statistics of the consumption you have of the applications. You can also set time limits or timers for different categories, as well as set time limits or timers, giving you a better control of your time. However, being an Android device also means you have access to the complete suite of options that Google has developed specifically for Android devices. If you're interested in learning about each of these options, you can find a link in the description below where you can explore them thoroughly and gain a detailed understanding. Description, I provide a link so you can learn more about them. Let's discuss the battery, a topic of great interest, where theoretically they've made a big sacrifice. And it's an issue many people worry about when reading the capacity from 3900. However, Samsung has really surprised me with some excellent optimization. In my extreme battery draining test during a close-up, it impressively reached 4 hours. It's a CT. Figure that other devices reach with 5000 mAh. Although most exceed 4 hours, it remains around 4 hours and a quarter or 4.5. So, as you can see, I believe it is not too far from the experience provided by devices that have 5000 mAh batteries. But in this case, in an ultra-slim format with a great optimization of Samsung, and in fact in my test of draining in the background, if we see a significant increase reaching almost 6 hours. Other devices in this test are below the 5H, even with 5000 mAh batteries. So this device has a battery that stands up well, that is considered that it will give you an experience very similar to that of devices with 5000 mAh batteries. There is not much to worry about in that aspect, at least in the tests I did, although this demanding it to the maximum. Let's say that if you are a very active and very intense user, you will have a very similar experience to the one I was telling you about in another test I did. That was to play YouTube videos with the battery fully charged at 100% until it turned off, and it lasted for 14 hours and 26 minutes. Although it must be said that from 14H with 7min, the screen brightness went down when it got to 5%. It is a setting that brings default, although through the settings you can already change it if you want to keep the screen brightness at maximum at all times. But in this test, it did not do so well. So it's clearly not a battery champ, but I also don't think it's going to be the disaster that we all expected when we saw the battery capacity that it has. Other manufacturers with bigger batteries perform like this device. So in my opinion, it's not a cell phone that you're going to be frequently needing to plug into the charger. Luckily, it also comes with a classic saver mode. I believe this feature can assist you in getting through your day more effectively, especially if you're someone who uses their phone a lot. Extremely active, and it also features the ultra mode or of energy, which of course in emergencies can help a lot. In this case, it supports 25 watts load. I think this aspect doesn't really help much, although for loads lasting 30 minutes, it can assist in recovering a sufficient amount of energy. As you can see in the graph, it keeps power near the limit at a large part of the time, especially in the first half hour, then the charge will go down. In my test, in 15 minutes, it reached 25%, in 30 minutes, it reached 55%, and the charge was finished in 1H with 13 min, so it is not an ultra charge. Not as fast or as ultra powerful as other devices where in just half an hour you already have your cell phone fully charged. So in this regard, if you were able to have the opportunity to experience, less than we would prefer. Interestingly, even though it is an ultra thin format, it still maintains wireless charging capabilities, which is quite surprising for a format of this style. And it also supports reverse wireless charging, which, for instance, we haven't seen yet simply on an iPhone. This implies that you have the option to charge your headphones, possibly by placing them on the back of the cell phone. Or even a different cell phone that supports wireless charging. Although it's slow, however, in emergencies, it can also be helpful. To ensure that the battery doesn't deteriorate too quickly, it features smart charging and a charging lock. So if you leave it charging overnight, or if you find that you need to keep it plugged in continuously, for instance, driving an Uber, if the battery doesn't deteriorate, ease. Regarding connectivity, I think it has everything we want. There are no sacrifices in this aspect. It supports 5 grams networks. Also, support for the Wi-Fi 7 networks, offering extremely high download speeds. It includes an option to block mobile data for specific apps, allowing only Wi-Fi connection to avoid surprises. It also supports eSIM for adding data plans via QR codes, handy when traveling for don't buy cards, physical SIM. In other areas, we find Bluetooth 5.4. Also NFC for mobile payments, no FM radio, but high-end models lack it too. And it includes the USB-C connector. USB 3.2 Generation 4 offers extremely high transfer speeds. Therefore, if you frequently record numerous videos and need to transfer them to your computer using a cable, this technology allows you to do so with excellent speed and efficiency. With a cable, it can also project your screen when you use the right adapters, HDMI, but it's also capable of projecting wirelessly through Smart View, so you have smart projection. Imagine a scenario where you can not only project your screen in a mirror format, but also have the capability to project just a specific application. Now, this allows you to continue using your cell phone for other tasks simultaneously without any interruption. Or also, Samsung DeX profiles. To project in a desktop format where applications are running within a floating window. Samsung DeX is accessible both through wired connections and wirelessly, therefore, which is fantastic if you attach a mouse to it. With one wireless keyboard, you can work with much more complex web applications as if you're on a computer, making it a real standout feature. Android Auto is available for you to enjoy either wired or wirelessly. And regarding the sensors, we'll find the inclusion of accelerometer, geomagnetic sensor, orientation, gyroscope, even pressure sensor and proximity sensor. It'll be these sensors that these are contact sensors. So if you happen to bring your cell phone just a bit closer to your ear, it actually won't activate at all until it fully touches you. So I think it's not ideal, but at least it lacks those virtual sensors we dislike. And it doesn't have infrared for a universal remote. There are a few little things it could have better, but we can grasp it in an ultra format. Compact. One of the main strengths certainly lies in the ecosystem. As you know, Samsung is a major company, providing a comprehensive catalog of products to enhance your experience. For instance, they offer the Galaxy Buds, the Galaxy Watch, the Galaxy Ring, and the Galaxy Tab, among others. In certain countries, the Galaxy Book is available. Unfortunately, in Mexico, the ecosystem still feels incomplete because there is no option to purchase Samsung laptops. This is an issue I will keep addressing until I'm tired of waiting to see if Samsung will be encouraged to take their laptops to Mexico. But Samsung technologies also offer benefits like multi-control, allowing the same cursor on your phone, on your tablet, and on your computer if Samsung sold the computers in Mexico. But hey, you can also answer calls from your watch, from the tablet, so everything connects when using the same account. If you're on a web page in Samsung browser or watching a also note in Samsung Notes, you will see that on your tablet, it will suggest you to resume that same activity. Alternatively, you might choose to utilize the camera on your cell phone. From your Galaxy Book, if Samsung were to sell its Galaxy Book in Mexico, as if it were the camera of your computer, and all this done wirelessly. In fact, with One UI 7, an option is also released that allows sharing storage, so that without wires, your cell phone shows up as a storage device on your computer or TV. Samsung consistently expands its ecosystem. Remember, Quick Share was integrated with Google's Nearby Share, so you also have the option to send and share files quickly and easily. Fast. When it comes to services, Samsung doesn't provide its own cloud, which I believe is an area they could enhance. However, they do offer a partnership with OneDrive, granting you a 5 GB storage option, and obviously, which is Google Drive, providing you with a total of 15 GB of storage. However, in other services, Samsung does indeed offer you, for instance, its very own App Store, its own platform. Samsung Health, for all that, relates to your fitness, activity, and additional features, along with their own home device control platform, Samsung SmartThings, which is truly excellent. It's compatible with numerous brands, allowing you to integrate them into your home and manage everything from a single app. Samsung offers a well-developed ecosystem with some areas for improvement, but it truly is yet another remarkable highlight of the experience that this phone is going to offer you. Let's check the time it takes to launch 16 apps on the Galaxy S25 Edge with Snapdragon processor, 8 Elite, 4 Galaxy, and 12 GB of RAM. As you can see, it took approximately 5 seconds to open each one. Application process is really extremely fast. But let's take a moment to see if these 12 GB of RAM are being managed effectively. Notice that there wasn't any need for a reboot or a wide screen when we returned to the first application we had opened. It appears that the optimization is significantly improved compared to what we observed in the One UI 6. Naturally, physical RAM appears to utilize it quite effectively. So you can switch between apps this way. Note the device stays fluid, it behaves pretty well indeed. Not a problem in this aspect. For simple processing, graphics will be good. However, for somewhat more complex processing, it mentions that it might slow down. Interestingly enough, it appears that in this particular case, at the very least, Snapchat doesn't appear to be as optimized, because this processor, which we have observed in other devices with a smoother execution, it seems the device is much slower with these kind of graphics. It lacks great optimization. Insist for the most complex effects. But in addition to the 12 GB of physical RAM memory, note that the device will also offer us the RAM function by default. It adds 8 more GB, though I think it's best to turn this option off. It comes enabled from the factory. I have the model with 512 GB of storage, so we have a capability. It's very good, although keep in mind that it doesn't include a slot for micro SD cards. However, in this situation, you can still explore your storage options quite well to check what is occupying more space. In case you're looking to have a bit more space available, you can directly access here to the gallery, filter unused apps, duplicate files, and largest files to assist you to clean up. For the tech savvy, let's test this. Storage speed for read and write. Let's wait. We have 3,933 megabytes per second read, 3,832 megabytes per second in writing. It's incredibly fast, like lighting. However, for those who may not be as technically inclined, let's go ahead and export these videos, as this is the test we're conducting. We always do this, and let's find out how much time it will take. Remember that in this case, we are using clips recorded with this cell phone, and we are not using CapCut because it is now paid in some devices. And that's all there is to it. Please note that it took 16 seconds. Therefore, for exporting video, it's simply extremely quick. Finally, when it comes to the Gaming Hub, this provides you with content that you can use without needing to install it, which helps save storage space. Of course, these are games and content that you can access and run without needing to install them, allowing you to conserve storage space. It's a great feature because of the option to play without installing, which is beneficial for saving storage. Obviously, these are games and content you can run without installing, helping you save storage space. Simple, but additionally, here you can manage the games you've installed. However, before proceeding, let me access the game booster settings. Here, you have the option to choose the performance profile you prefer. You can decide whether to prioritize performance or battery consumption. Furthermore, you can customize that profile for each game separately and select the refresh rate you desire for your screen while playing. Additionally, when you connect to a power delivery charger, you have the option to enable this feature. It prevents the current from passing to the battery, which helps to avoid overheating. Therefore, if you enjoy playing games frequently, it might be worthwhile to try this option. This way, you reduce heating slightly, so it might be worth trying if you enjoy gaming frequently. You also have the shortcut settings available, which I will show you in just a moment. Why? The setup of the screenshots, however, we are going to proceed to run a content that allows you to view the shortcuts by yourself. Please note that in this section, we will have a small floating bar which we can easily slide to enhance the screen's touch responsiveness. Also, lock and dim the screen a bit if downloading content and wish to conserve some battery. Additionally, we will have the option available to take screenshots, screen recordings, and ensure that the edge panels are locked to prevent any additional or accidental activations. Also, remember to lock the automatic brightness along with the voice assistant to avoid unintended activations. But as you notice, now the menu is much more simplified than in past generations. Removing plugin access and some other things only maintains access to the pop-up applications that we can customize in the configuration to run them in this floating view without having to leave our game. However, let's take a look at the results of the tests. In Call of Duty, they will provide us with very high quality at the maximum rate by default, but we can reach a graphic quality maximum, keeping the max frame rate or going ultra high. Reduce quality to a medium level. Here, we'll prioritize graphic quality, noting its complexity. With nearly all the effects you desire, this processor is naturally extremely powerful. Keep in mind that throughout all our tests, we enabled the high-performance mode, and in this scenario, the outcome was just as anticipated. We experienced absolutely perfect performance, with stability, completely very good, not even a slight peak at all, so we definitely behave well regarding the game's looseness, but in this case, it must be said that the temperature started to become quite high right from this initial test. Performance, which is expected in a device that has as main priority to be ultra thin, giving priority to the update rate. Again, we had a really good performance, very good, pretty much with perfect stability. Therefore, it's a gadget that will provide you with a great experience. In gaming, as long as the games are short, because when you consider that the temperature went up to 47 degrees Celsius, it's a similar issue to what's happening in the ultra-thin laptop market. Or pretty much the same situation that occurs with laptops, especially in the market for ultra-thin laptops, even though they have decent power, is generally not recommended for gaming due to its limited space for cooling. So, despite being a device that is not recommended for gaming, it really isn't suitable for gaming because of its insufficient cooling space. Incorporates a vapor chamber. Large, it's not quite sufficient to effectively cool the device, so the temperature of the device while you're holding it in your hand can become quite bothersome, if not. However, I believe the cooling system is effective because even though the device feels quite hot on the outer lid, maintains a very high performance, at least so far. Then we played War Thunder. This game we set it on the graphics quality, the absolute highest possible. It is a very complex game as it has ray tracing. And remember that this processor does support this type of complex graphics. So after we configured everything, the device provided us with a total of 95 average FPS, but we saw more fluctuations. It hasn't kept 100% stable. It's worth noting that it is a very complex game, mainly due to the extensive and detailed graphics involved. Experience? In this case, it drops to 68 frames per second, ensuring a smooth experience. Super smooth. As long as it's over 60 frames per second, the experience will be good. But again, the temperature is the one that can result in quite annoying. When dealing with this type of complex test, naturally it is advisable to engage with high settings, but not the absolute highest settings possible. This is because although the processor can handle extremely high-level graphics, actually the temperature is going to suffer a lot. Therefore, if you adjust and manage the graphics quality, I believe that the gaming experience would become absolutely perfect and thoroughly enjoyable. When we play Genshin Impact, it sets to high graphics quality, but we clearly set it to the maximum, the highest, 60 frames per second to really put it to an extreme test and observe how it behaves. And in this particular case, the reality is that if the drops happen to be somewhat more noticeable, even though the lowest was 41 frames per second, you might start to notice it, especially when you're recording the screen. The game performs exceptionally well, even though it has an incredibly complex graphical setup. Configured, the game worked well, without having to freeze for a while or experiencing something similar. Therefore, it is clear it's not a gamer phone, so it's recommended to play with quality graphics. It is not reaching the highest possible limit. Interestingly, it didn't heat up as much as in previous games, and we're facing one of the games that usually it tends to heat up more with the cell phones we tested, which is just a curious fact. However, I remind you that the overall experience remains really good. After that, we played Kark Street, which by default is set to. There were many graphics on level 4, yet we increased it to the maximum and removed all limits. Limit the FPS, here it averaged 59 FPS. This game is super complex. Due to the numerous graphics and reflections it contains, it was stable at 54 FPS. Even though recording the screen is slightly more noticeable when it comes to low peaks, it still provides a really great experience overall. Once again, it is clear that Samsung's level of optimization is really great, given that this device, it will be super thin, so regarding performance, if it can compete perfectly well at the high end, although it does take its toll on the temperature, We then played bright memory, and note that we raised the limit to 120 frames per second and set all the parameters at the very highest level possible, which in certain situations was just the medium or even the low level. However, it is quite a complex game, and in this particular situation, I believe that. Yes, you can finally see that it's not a completely focused phone. Video gaming, every previous game has successfully managed to run. The performance remains smooth, but more fluctuations are noticeable. It can reach up to 120 frames per second occasionally, but at other times it may fall to 51 frames per second. However, in both cases, it remains a smooth experience. Yet, in extremely long games with very heavy graphics, you might notice the performance gradually dropping bit by bit. But I'm struck by, see this degree of performance in such a slim device. However, I believe there are numerous other options that could provide you with the same level of performance. I prefer using it in a cooler form factor, that's why. It's clear this isn't a phone for gamers, but for casual gaming, it works just fine. In conclusion, this device targets a specific segment. It's not a cell phone for all. For the price, if, for instance, you could already purchase a Galaxy S24 Ultra or even a Galaxy S25 Ultra, with discounts and more, that's going to outperform this phone in every way. Except in its light and slim form, so it targets a specific group seeking an ultra-thin cell phone. A very thin cell phone. I also view it as Samsung demonstrating that they can create a very thin cell phone. This is my offer. We need to wait and see if other brands release ultra-thin phones to compare and see their offerings in thin formats. But again, if you can afford this phone, you'd be better with the Galaxy S25 Ultra or other options, unless you want an ultra-slim phone. It's not bad, but for the price, the S25 Ultra is better. Ultra. For now, we've reached the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, let us know, and we'll see you next time.